Now, in this project, we'll be working on RPA challenge. Here, we have a site with us with this particular URL on the screen, and we'll be given an input file for this particular website, which looks like this, where we will have 10 rows of data which we have to enter into this particular website. And right here in this Excel, we have the information of different employees working in different companies. Their first name, last name, company name, role in the company, their address, email ID, and the phone number. All this information has to be entered into this particular website. So as soon as you click on start, right here, the round 1 starts. The first row's information, this information has to go directly into this particular fields. As soon as you enter something and click on submit, as you can see, the fields alignment is changing, and again in this round you have to enter this values into this fields, and again click on submit. This thing will repeat itself for 10 times, and you also have 10 records with you. Once this is done, you'll be able to see something on the screen which is nothing but a kind of assessment score, defining how much time you have taken and how many of them were correct, the fields. So basically last time you have worked on an automation where you have taken the input from the user, but this time we are going to learn something new, which is taking the input from the Excel sheet and then going through each of this particular data and then entering this data into the given website. So here the new concepts that you might learn are reading the data from the Excel and then entering all this data into a website continuously, such that in a loop. So I already have the code implemented for this. I'll run it once so that you understand how it actually works. It's a kind of small demo. Let me run this. As soon as I click on the run, it will try to launch the website and then it starts entering the data. So it is doing it as if some human is entering it, right? Soon you'll be able to perform something like that. So it's not much different from whatever we have learned in the last project. It's a kind of data entry that we have learned earlier, but with some extra features in it. Most of the RPA projects will depend on the data entry part of it. So we'll be looking at data entry projects more often when you start learning RPA projects. So right here, it's the 10th round. And once bot clicks on submit, you'll be able to see a screen which says, congratulations, your success rate is 100%. So we have correctly entered 70 out of 70 fields and the time taken was this milliseconds. So what are we waiting for? Let's start implementing it.
Now let's go ahead and create a new project where we can implement our process. Here it is. The name for this will be Robot 2 RPA challenge, and then we will give the description as RPA challenge, and then we will select the preferred language as VB and just click on create. So this will add the dependencies and create the workspace for us to start implementing the process. Once this is ready, as we can see, these are the default dependencies that have been added, and there is a main XAML given to us, and there is also a project.json file available to us. The first thing that we will do is we'll click on this particular main.xaml, as this will be the workspace for us to start working implementing the project. And then To open this project location, we will click on this symbol right here as discussed earlier. As soon as I click right there, it will open up a window. So this is where the project files that we will be going to implement will stay. Then the first thing that we have to do is we have to collect the input file that we need, right? For that, this is the website that we'll be automating soon, and the input required for this will be available right here. You can click on this particular button and it will ask to save that particular Excel, and this is saved. We are just pasting that right here so that it can be available in the project files. This will be the input for our project. Let's go back to the code and I'll just refresh this project. So I'll be able to see the input file just now downloaded and added to the project right here. So we are done with the collection of input file. Now the next step is to read this input. So input for us can come in any form. It can be from database, and it can be from SharePoint, it can be for email, it can be from text file, or it can be from any CSV file. Because the input is in Excel, we'll go ahead and try to navigate to this particular panel, which is activities panel, and we have an activity called read range, which will help us read any CSV file or Excel file. So there are two types of activities available. One is Excel activities and another thing is workbook activities. I'll just give a brief introduction to this. Excel activities is nothing where to use this you will need Excel to be installed, and for workbook you don't need Excel to be installed on your system. And going ahead, there are a lot of advanced things that you can perform using Excel, but it will not be possible with just workbook activities. So that's why there exist two kind of activities. You can explore them. If you just click Excel here, there are these activities available for you under Excel. And if you just click workbook, so these are few activities available for workbook, as you can see. So let's go ahead and use read range workbook, because ours is a simple process. It's just reading of an Excel. You can also use this. So in the future lectures, I'll be also using this so that you get familiar with both of these two. So I'll go ahead and pass the parameters that are required for this read range workbook to work. As we can see, there are few inputs that this particular activity expects. One is range. What would be the range? From Excel, we can see that it should read from A1, this particular cell, and should end at this, which is nothing but G11. And coming back to our project, let's pass that value right here. In double quotes, A1. See, you are not required to pass the start and the end. You can just pass the start, and the end will be determined by the read range workbook itself. And even you're not even required to give A1. You can just leave it blank. Even then it will read from A1. But just to make sure, sometimes it doesn't. So just to make sure, I'm adding A1 right here. And then what is the sheet name for this? Sheet name for this is sheet 1. We can just make it data if required, else we can just continue with that. I've made it as data. So the sheet name is data for us here, and then it is expecting the path name. I'll also give this. This is done. As you can see, the range is provided, the sheet name is provided, the workbook path is provided, and then add headers should be checked so that it also reads the columns, and if it is password protected you have to provide that too. So this basic inputs are done. Now suppose if the bot is reading it, what will you be able to do it if it just reads it and do nothing about it? So that's where we have to save it somewhere, which is also called as a variable. Variable here is of data table type. Data table is nothing but a view that we create for any input that we have, which contains rows and columns. For us, as it is an Excel, it has rows and columns, and the data table is a good fit for that. So we are creating a variable type of data type. We'll just select Control K and then we'll create a variable. Let's say my data table, and then click on enter. It will create a variable for us. This is completely fine. We have created a variable of type data table. It will have all the data that is available in the Excel sheet being stored. Just to confirm if it has read it correctly, we'll try to use an activity called output data table. This will accept the data table that we already have with us, which is my data table, and convert it to text. Control K str. This variable name can be anything. And the reason why I'm using, the only purpose why I'm using this activity is just to see if it has correctly read the Excel file. We'll not be using it later on. We'll just delete it. It is just for the confirmation and nothing else. Let me take the message box here. If it's not available for you right here, you can just click box and it will show up message box. And I'll pass this output, which is text, to this message box. Yeah, this is done. See, because this message box only accepts string, I have used this particular activity right here, which converts data table to string. Else I could have directly passed this to this. Because this is not possible, that conversion, I have used this in between. Saving this whole thing, I'll just try to run this flow. And it has started reading it, and you can see here is the data. It is same as we have seen in the Excel file. It has the first name, last name, company name, role, and the 10 rows of data with us. So that is how we can read data from any given Excel file. In the last lecture, we have learnt on how to read an Excel file that is given to us. Here it was challenge.xlsx, which contains the input data which has to be entered onto the site. And the next thing that we have to do is we have to launch this particular website. To do that, let's take the help of UiPath activities. We have an activity called Open Browser, which can be used to launch a website. So here is the activity called Open Browser, and I've just dragged it to the workspace. Here it do accept some properties which has to be passed for it to work. Let's go through each one of that. One is continuous error, which has to be set to true or false based on the requirement. And this is the display name. It is nothing but open browser, this open browser. And then the browser type, let's go ahead with Internet Explorer for right now. Let's go ahead with Internet Explorer for now. And then it expects the URL. As we have the URL with us, let's copy this and I'll just paste it right here. You can either give that here or you can enter it from this particular window. And then comes the options. These are few advanced options that you might not need right now at this particular stage. So you can ignore them. And there is also an output which is UI browser. This is also an advanced topic. This you'll never be using most of the times, so you can just ignore it, because you can think of this as a kind of instance which can be used in the future. So you can just ignore it for now. And then going forward, this is what is needed for us to launch the website. So as soon as we run this particular code, it will launch this website, and then we have to click on the start button. Let's go ahead and do that also. Let me search for click here. This is the activity. So any activities that are related to this browser can be placed inside this, or can also be placed outside of this, like this. That shouldn't be a problem. But it is suggested that you place it inside this particular do block so that it generates partial selectors. We'll soon look at what are partial selectors and full selectors. I'll just show you that too here. Let me indicate it on the screen. So I'm able to highlight these things right here. Let me select the start button. As you can see, we have got this particular screenshot here which says this click is for start button. Let me take you through the selector. As you can see, we have the URL which is rpachallenge.com, and then this says button, which is nothing but this particular start button. If you want to add some more attributes to it, you can open UI Explorer, and you can also add the AA name, which would be easier for us to understand which button is it referring to. Then you can save it. Yeah, this is added, and then click on OK. So this is what we have. Now let me run this particular project. As we can see, here is the output that we have got in the last lecture. The bot will start launching the website, and it will also click on the start button. Here it is. So that was about launching the website and clicking on a button, the start button. As now we are done with launching the website, which is rpachallenge.com, the next thing that we will move on to is reading the input and iterating through each of the record. So we'll go from this particular row item to this, and then this, and then this, and so on, so that we can process all these records. To achieve or to go through each of these records, which are already available in this particular data table for us, we have to use an activity called for each row, which will be available under data table. Just drag this right here onto the workspace, and then here you have to pass. Okay, first let me take you through the properties of it. There's a condition that you have, and also there's a data table that you have to pass, and this is the max iterations that you want, and then this is the index available for you. Right now the only thing that we are concerned about is iterating through the each element or each row in the data table. So let's pass the data table just coming out of this activity, which is nothing but my data table. I'm just copying it, and let's paste it here. So this will actually make this error go away. So this is the basic structure that we are
okay with.
And just to explain you a little bit about the for each row in data table activity, what it will try to do is, this condition is nothing but for each in this particular data table. What does that mean? From this particular data table, it will first fetch this item and make it available for us in this particular variable. You can also rename it if you want. You can put something else also, just row or something, but let it be. Okay. So the first item in the first iteration will be available in this particular variable. So how would we be able to access it? Just take a message box. As we know that the first time this is into the loop, when the index is 0, so the indexing for data table starts from 0. Okay, yeah, just keep in mind. And then I'll do one thing. I'll do current row, because this is the first row, and then in that we want column, which is nothing but the first name. Copy it. Don't try to write it manually, because there might be a situation where there are extra characters available in the column. As you can see here, there seems to be an extra space. Got it, right? So if you manually type it, you will just type last name and not the space, so it will definitely cause an issue. So make a practice where you will copy the whole name from the Excel sheet itself, basically the input sheet, and paste it right here. This is done. So first time when this executes, it will give me the first name, which is nothing but John, and then execute the second row, then third row, and then fourth row. And once all the records available in this are done, then it will come out of this loop. And just in case, if you want to see which row is being processed, I'll just add this also here. Just remember this code. It is nothing but whatever data table that you have, which is this dot rows, and then you have to use the method called index of, and then pass this row. What this will do is, it will give you the index number. Okay, so that it would be helpful for you to understand what exactly is happening. Here we are doing nothing. We are using the data table that we have. In that, we are using rows method. Onto that, we are using index of and this. See, if you don't want to use all this particular code, so let me run this particular project right now. So here we have the input file records, and once that is done, the bot is launching the website and has clicked on start button, and it is displaying the output message boxes that we have given. It is in the index 0 right now, and then the value at 0 is John, right? And next it is in the index 1, and right now it's Jane, and similar to that, it will start displaying all the records and the first name mainly for those particular records. This demonstration I have given so that you understand how for each row actually works. As you can find, it is moving from 0 index to the highest index available. Okay, so it has covered all the records and it was able to fetch all the records from the input file given to it. Similar to how you were able to display the first name, you can also take another message box
and then take the last name, just copy it and then paste it here, and similar to that, again take another message box and take the company name and then paste it here. Just take care of any extra spaces as in this case and try to handle them. Go ahead and do it for all the other columns in the given Excel sheet. That's all. Next, we will try to learn how to type the data into those fields. We are done with fetching the values one by one from the Excel sheet. So we will be able to use this particular code to enter the values right into the screen. Right? Let's go ahead and do that. What I will do is, as we already know, to enter something onto the screen like this, we will use type into activity. Let's do the same. I'll just type into, and here is the activity. I can just drag it, and what I will do is I will indicate on screen. I just want the bot to enter first name here, right? I've clicked it and it's there. So this should be first name. You can just start renaming the activity. And where is it? Drag this here. It is just for the information, so I'm not touching it. So this thing we can use, paste it here. Let me delete this. I can also delete these things for now. Let's see if first name is working. Yeah. So what is the error? It should say that it can't convert an object to string. So we have to enter dot to string and it should be fine. So this is done. And as we can see, once we enter first name, it should click on submit. And again, the second name, the second row's first name should go here, and then again it should click on submit. And this time the first name should be here, and again this should be right here. Yeah, as you can see there, the alignment of this particular fields is changing. Do you think that will actually affect our automation anywhere? Let's go ahead and work as per our knowledge for now at this particular stage. So I'll just take a click activity and then I'll indicate the submit button, which is this. Okay. So whatever we have right now is, we will read the Excel. This part we can remove it. We don't actually need it. So I'm just removing this. It was just for us to understand the things. And then we have the launching of the website. And then we are going through each row available in the Excel. This also we can remove if you want. Let me keep it for now. And then we are entering the first name and then we are submitting it, right? Yeah, perfect. So if you have the Excel open, just close it, because sometimes it throws an error saying the file cannot be used because it's being used by someone else. So just to avoid that mistake, you can close the Excel that is being used as an input. And also close any instances of your website. So going forward, the bot will close the instances of the website that we are using so that we don't have to manually close it. So our code is ready. Let's go ahead and run it. As we can see, it has launched the website and also clicked on start, and this is round 1 and this is the first record. I'm clicking on OK, and as we can see, the bot is unable to click or unable to type the text in the first name. So what do you think is the reason? Let me show you. I'm stopping the bot. Actually, if I just let that stay that way, it will just throw you an error saying that element the bot was unable to find. But just to save the time, I've stopped it. Let's go ahead and see what's the issue. The first thing, if something doesn't work, then you have to look at the selector of it. This is the selector that we are passing on to the type into. But looks like this isn't working. But when we have spied, it has given this ID, but maybe the ID right now is not available. What can be the reason? Wait a minute. Let's use this UI Explorer here, and using this, I'll just click on indicate element and I'll spy the first name. Oh, this has changed. If you just cross check it with the one that you have for first name, here there was I4Z3K and now it's BRNSS. So there's a difference, right? So every time I spy, it's changing. If I just copy this and paste it here, and then again go back to the site and click on submit. This is the next page. Let's again spy this first name. And we find this is again a unique one. Let me paste it here. So do you really think we'll be able to automate it if we go by this way? Obviously no, because for every record available in the Excel, the first name gets changed. This is the challenge, and this is why it is called RPA challenge. Because you have to implement a project in such a way that this should work for all the pages available here. It should work for this also, the selector. It should work for this also, this also, this also, this also. So how do you be able to do that or handle this particular scenario? There's a solution to it. So let me right now indicate something on the screen, which is nothing but the one we were using, the first name, and see it has again changed. So the one way to make it a stable selector, because this is not stable because we can't rely on this every time, there's an option called indicate anchor. This option is nothing but in simple terms, for now as we can see, this field is not stable. Okay, the ID for this is getting changed, but if you correctly observe, this field always stays below this particular thing, right, which is obvious. So why can't we take the help of first name, this element, to type something in this element? Good idea, right? Let's go back to the UI Explorer and I'll use indicate anchor. With this, I'll try to point out first name, and soon we'll be able to see a new selector. Soon you'll be able to see a new selector coming up. Here the AA name is first name and nav up 1, and this is the one that we have already seen, and this we know that this is not a stable selector. We can remove it from here. It's gone. So let's click on validate. Yeah, and highlight. It is able to highlight it. And let me go back again and click on submit. This time again it should be able to validate and highlight this particular element instead of failing. Let me do that again. Validate. Yeah, it is able to validate. Validate is nothing but it says if the selector is available on the screen. If it's green, it's available. if I just take out T and click on validate, it will fail. So that is the only thing. I'm just adding T again. Yeah, and then again validate. Yeah, it's there. So I'll just highlight it again. Isn't it easy to make or create a stable selector? It is, right? So let's go back and I'm copying this and I'll use it in my project. I'm coming back here and into type into, I'll go directly to the selectors and I will replace this with the one that we have got from here and click on validate, and this should work completely fine. I'll click on OK. Once this setup is done, I'll save it and I'll just run the bot. So this time it has launched the website, clicked on start, and the round 1, 0. It has clicked on first name only, and then the second row from the Excel, and it should click right here. Oh, sorry, type into this particular field. Yes, it is doing it the right way. And this is the third item from the Excel, and it is right here. This is how we should be able to handle dynamic selectors whose IDs change from session to session. Going back to our code, I'll just stop the bot, and we can also take it off and save it. And similar to first name, we can start adding type into for last name. As we have seen, this is the same thing that we'll be using, and I'll be using this column, paste it right here. This is done, and similar to what we have done earlier, we have to use UI Explorer to get the last name selector to this particular field. I'll indicate this first. This is the selector for that, and I'll also take the help of an anchor, which is this. Okay, we have this selector 2 with us. I'll just remove this ID from here and then click on validate. Okay, it's fine. So I'll copy this and go back to here. So I can directly place this selector here. You have to use double quotes and then between them place this selector and save it. This becomes the last name. Similar to this, you can start adding the other columns too. Here's the final code that we have with us. I have added all the other remaining fields along with the type into activities. As you can see, current row of this, current row of this, current row of email, current row of phone number. I have covered up all these columns available here. And then we can submit it. Don't forget to add the selectors for this activities too by the same method whichever we have used earlier. Try to indicate it on the screen and add the anchor. Finally, as we have everything ready for us to run the project or the automation, let's go ahead and run it. From here, it should be able to launch the website. Yes, it is doing it. And then it has to click on start and then submitting the values. As we can see, this has started entering the values, the email in email, mobile number in mobile name, and it is the best thing, it's working for all the pages, though the fields are randomly aligned. Isn't it easy to automate something? So it is in round 5 and it's entering the data still. and it's the final round. And that's it. So it was able to enter the data into all the fields. As we can see, 70 out of 70 fields, and it has taken this much time. So this can be reduced a lot by using other activities available in UiPath. Just to give you an idea, you can use set text activity instead of type into activity. Try experimenting it. And just in case if you are unable to follow along me and implement this project, I'll be attaching this particular project after this lecture so that you can download it, compare it with your project and see where exactly you're going wrong.